We are live. You can go ahead and get started.
Good evening. My name is Brad McKittrick. I am the co-chair for our committee. Our committee is reimagining public safety, but I feel that it may be a little bit more concise to policing within the city. I'd like to ask Mr. Fusco if he would make a motion to suspend all council rules pertaining to in-person meeting and in-person voting. You are there you go.
Silly me. Yeah, I'll make that motion, Mr. McKittrick.
Okay, and I second that motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And no opposed.
Aye.
Okay. What I would like to do is introduce Mr. Fusco. Go ahead, Mr. Fusco, introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce all the members from APD here.
Okay, thank you, Chair McKittrick. Jeff Fusco, Akron City Council at large, been around for a long time, also as an administrator as well. So looking forward to working with APD on this. Thank you.
I just wanted to say Tara Samples is the chair. I'm the co-chair. She is not going to be in attendance as she had a death in the family that she's dealing with. Captain Beitzel, if you'd like to go ahead.
Captain Chris Beitzel. I missed the first part of it. One of my officers was texting me. What did you need from me, Brad?
Just an introduction of your position within the department and so on.
Okay, I'm a patrol commander, platoon 5, which is the afternoon shift. That's basically my duties within the department.
Okay, and Lieutenant Fite?
I am Lieutenant Alan Fite. I work out of the Office of Professional Standards and Accountability. I am also the commander of the recruitment and background units for the Akron Police Department.
And Lieutenant Forney?
Hi, my name is Jerry Forney, and I'm a lieutenant with in the Training Bureau. I have almost done 28 years of service with the Akron Police Department, and I've been in charge of the training since May 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much. So with our meetings that we've got scheduled, our next meeting after tonight will be October 1st. There'll be another for Personnel and Culture for October 15th, October 29th, and November 12th. And those will all be at 5 p.m. And then we're going to try to group together at the end and come up with some goals that we come up with from our different groups that are having these meetings. We're going to be exploring hiring, training, and equity within the department. I guess maybe the best place to start with this would be with the actual process of hiring. So doing background. So Lieutenant Fite, if you could give a little background on that to give us an idea of the process that's gone through. I just would like to mention my experience with the city previously. We had over 3,000 people that would sign up to take tests for our safety forces. And it seems as if over the years that has started to wane. There's been various reasons, I'm assuming, but it seems now that we're quite a bit lower. I'm assuming the police are in the same boat as far as how many people actually do sign up for it. So if you could touch on that as well. And I'm sure that's going to be exacerbated because of the issues with the political climate that we're in right now.
Sure, and thank you, Brad, and thank you, Mr. Fusco, for allowing us to be here. You mentioned backgrounds. Hiring really begins at the testing phase or the recruitment phase, which starts after the city and the department determine there's a need to hire people. And we go through a lot of phases. There's internal discussions here at the police department about hiring. There's marketing strategies that are talked about. Then there's budget conversations. Then we start recruiting, and we award or HR does as a function of HR, rewards a vendor to give a written test. After that, there's a posting. Usually that posting comes out about 8 weeks or more before the written test is going to take place. After that, we recruit very hard for those 8 weeks. And I'll get into recruiting maybe a little bit later on what we do with our recruiters. Then the written examination is given. After that written examination, those who pass the test will get an invitation to attend a physical fitness assessment where we put on a assessment as part of the hiring process of candidates' physical ability to do sit-ups, push-ups, and a 1.5 mile run. After you successfully complete the fitness testing, there is a drug screening that we do. After that, all the names are given, shipped from HR to the police department, and we get our background unit assembled, and we start doing backgrounds on the applicants in rank order. And that process, it can be a lengthy one. Part of our backgrounds, we do polygraph testing. We check for criminal records. We check employment. We do neighborhood canvases. We check with references. We dig pretty deep into the applicants' lives and background to make sure that we are putting the best people on the streets of Akron. After the background investigators do their due diligence and investigation, it moves on to a command staff interview. And those interviews mainly are conducted by the chief and the deputy chiefs of police. Sometimes there's captains that also are involved in that, and even at times lieutenants are involved in those interviews. Once a candidate is interviewed and the command staff decides they want to hire that individual, he or she will be given a conditional job offer. Once they are given a conditional job offer, they have to go through a medical and psychological qualifying test to complete the process. Once that's done, we will get them ready for an academy, and we will send them through a OPATA certified academy. And I'm happy to say in 2019 and 2020, we sent our 45 recruits through our in-house academy, and we welcome that. And then Lieutenant Forney can talk to you a little bit more about the academy, and I'll be happy to get into some of the weeds of the background process if you need be.
Just wanted to touch base with the recruiting and so on. The last test that was given, how many applicants actually took the test?
Okay, recruiting, and
approximately.
And we started recruiting in early 2000, late 2019. We had 1,428 applicants, which was pretty good, given the conditions in this country, and given that unemployment was low. There was a lot of applicants. Typically, we'll get the applicants, but that number will drop off for those that show up to actually take the written test. And it did considerably. It dropped by more than several hundred. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it dropped considerably. In the end, 498 candidates passed the test. Once we got the list after the physical fitness testing, there was roughly 271 candidates for us to choose from.
So when you get that the last group and you start to go through them, are there times that you go completely down the list and start back up again?
Yes, quite often there's been a history of us to exhaust the list before we get all the candidates we need to fill all the open positions. Our 2019 list is still active. 2019, 2020 list is still active. And we still have some active names, and we didn't use all the lists for the 45 candidates we put on the streets.
Okay. Do you expect a possibility of another class because of through attrition, through retirements and so on, off of that particular list?
Currently, off our budget strength, we're at least 10 members down. We anticipate that we're going to lose people over the next 5 to 7 years, basically in droves because of past hiring practices. We hired large classes that are now at the age of retirement, including myself, and we're going to need to replenish the ranks here at the Akron Police Department. So we're going to hire, we should be hiring a lot over the next 5 to 7 years.
The aspects of recruiting now, has it become more difficult for you? I know you've done this for a long time. Has it become a lot more difficult?
Yeah, yes. Like you said earlier, you used to post that there was going to be a police test or a fire test, and 3,000 people rushed to sign up for the test, and that doesn't happen anymore. We have to put in some work, and we have to get out there on the streets and do a grassroots recruitment campaign, from going to barbershops, attending churches, schools, universities. Social media is big. Social media had big impact in our last recruitment drive. And I got that information from some of the 45 participants that we just sent through. They were given surveys, and they said social media was big for them. So yes, any way we could advertise, recruit, and look to bring people into the fold, we tried.
Well, I feel there's a lot of issues trying to recruit safety forces, not just in the aspect of for our police department, but for our fire department as well. When you look at the aspect of how things are changing within the pension system, how healthcare is going to be for the retirees, I think I've gotten messages from people that it's somewhat has deferred people from wanting to pursue that. So I don't know how we could become more competitive. Does our department compare to other departments, pay wise, things of that nature, staffing and so on?
We can only compare ourselves to the larger departments in the state of Ohio. That's typically how we do it. Pay wise, we're comparable to Cleveland, Toledo, and Dayton. Of course, Columbus makes quite a bit more than we do. But culture is one of the things you have to develop to bring people in. We want to promote a culture of serving. We want to promote a inclusive culture to bring people into the city of Akron that want to serve and protect our citizens. So I think that, and that's one of the things when we started our recruitment drive, we thought of taglines to get people to imagine to doing this job and trying to get people to believe that maybe a career in law enforcement in Akron is possible. And I got the poster up in my office that always reminds me of that. We talk about our story. Where'd you come from? Many of us were waiters or worked in a street department or were auto mechanics. People come in and change their career to law enforcement, and we welcome that. It doesn't matter what background you come from.
I know looking back through the history, and I go back quite a ways myself as far as that, but I look at the diversity within the departments, and, you know, we go back through history when we had the consent decree. I know that things really started to improve during that time, but then things started to taper back off again. How difficult is that to be able to attract more diversified applicants for the department?
Diversity is the big issue. You ask any police executive across the country, and they'll tell you that's a huge issue for them. And it's an issue, and it's a concern here in Akron. We want a diverse workforce. We strive to get to that point where, again, we want quality candidates. We want to put the best out there, but we want that to include that diversity to serve our citizens. And that's our goal every time we recruit and try to bring people on.
Councilman Fusco, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McKittrick. I'm not on mute. Okay, yeah, I'm just curious, do you happen to have those numbers in terms of the Black representation on the department, female representation on the department, and of course with some of our new citizens, new Akronites? I know we've actively been trying to recruit some Bhutanese and folks like that as well. And if you don't have it, we can always revisit.
I can get it. I can get it for you during this meeting. I have to pull it up on my computer, but I do have that, and I should have pulled it up, but I pulled up everything else.
I actually have it.
Do you, Chris?
Yeah. It's really broke down though in multiple different. It's the chart that Sergeant Nall gave us. So, oh goodness, it's really broke down. Let me look here. So, all sworn by gender, we have 458 officers, 415 are male, 43 are female. By race, 370 are Caucasian, 76 and a half are Black. One person actually lists two races, Black and Indian. 7 Asian, 3 Hispanic, and like I said, 1.5 Indian. And what else did you need to know? I have it broke down by rank and supervisors and everything too, but that's basically where we're at. So another area that we're significantly low in is our female officers.
Yeah, it's especially within the high law. Is that where we see a fall off there?
With department wide, we're only at 9.39% female, but yes, you're right. Within the high law, we have 2 female captains, 1 female lieutenant, and 2 female sergeants.
But through attrition, we've recently lost a few as well. Recently, is that correct?
We're about to lose a female sergeant to retirement. Oh, I'm sorry. We have 3 female sergeants. I'm sorry, and we're about to lose 1. Am I wrong, guys? 3? I got it right here. I don't know why I'm asking. Yes, we have 3 female sergeants. 1 is about to retire.
And then
Okay, yeah.
70. And then in terms of the high law in reference to the Black community, is that broken down as well?
Yes, let me find the correct. Okay, so we have 12 Black male supervisors, 1 Hispanic male supervisor, 1 Indian male, 80 white male supervisors. Then we have 1 Black female supervisors and 5 white female supervisors. It doesn't break it down in this particular. Oh yeah, it does. I do have it broke down by rank, but in general, that's the supervisors.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Beisel and Lieutenant Forney, anytime we're discussing any of this, if you'd like to weigh in, feel free. I welcome any of your input into this. There's something else, Lieutenant Fight, I wanted to check. How about retention? I know that that's been a problem over the years, is retention. Have we lost a lot of members early on in their careers?
Yeah, we are losing some of our young officers each year. There's a few, 1 to 2 each year would leave and pursue other career goals. Matter of fact, we have one that's leaving either this week or next week to pursue a fire career at another city. So it does happen. We try to pride ourselves on retention, but we do lose some.
I know the same has happened in fire. I don't know if it's as much, but it seems in more recent times that's become more common than it has in the past. I know a lot of times people will mention retention and what the cities need to do, what companies need to do to promote retention, to keep, good quality candidates after we invest all the time in training these people and getting them into these positions. I want to go ahead right now and jump over to Lieutenant Forney so we can discuss the aspect of training. I must say that I am extremely happy that we have our own training. I did go through in '93 and go through a portion of it, about 3/4 of the academy. And I was extremely impressed. The trainers that the departments had over the years were very, very impressive. And I think that having our own academy is much more beneficial to the city than farming it out to somebody else and then having to actually acclimate them to what's going on in the department. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, it actually gets our members more time to be able to observe these people to see if they're going to be able to make it through probation.
Yeah, that has been a real, important thing to the administration, to us, is to get the academy back. The training is just so much better. Like you said, you have officers that are out, handling calls in the city of Akron. Some of our trainers, we had temporary assignments come down here and they would assist in the training. They were going out on calls a week prior to the start training the new recruits. So, I mean, they've been there, they've done it, they did it in the city of Akron. They build those relationships right then. And I think it's something you really can't put a price tag on. But I agree with you saying that to have the Akron Police Department back doing their own training has been very significant for us. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you if you could elaborate. I'm fairly certain that you far exceed what the state's OPATA requirements are as far as training before they're put out of your academy.
Yes, the OPATA says that we have to do 737 hours, which is about 19 weeks. We do 24 weeks. So we are doing additional things within that time. And also keep in mind, within that 5 weeks of additional time, it's not always at the end. Sometimes we're doing it throughout the academy, but we also have to study and prepare for the OPATA exam. And that's kind of built in that extra 5 weeks that we have. And I'd like to say, just kind of brag a little bit. We had an average score of 92.38 in our academy, which is very good. But yes, we go above what the state minimum requirements are.
Now, after they're out, and I know that there's continual in-service trainings and so on, can you elaborate what training that the officers go through to keep their certifications up and so on? And if in fact it's beyond what's required by OPATA or how that is with your training?
Yeah, so OPATA, they do sometimes they set what they call CPTs, that's continuing police officer training. Well, they haven't required anything since 2017. And, we've still been going forward, like even this year, OPATA says, because of whatever reason, money on their end, there's no required training. Well, we are still, going forth with 2 days of in-service training. And, how we really get to, what that training is there's a group out there called the Ohio Collaborative. And they make recommendations on things that police departments ought to be training on every year, like legal updates, use of force items, bias-free policing. So we use those items. Plus what I do is I contact the patrol captains, the DB captains, internal affairs like Lieutenant Fight, and say, hey, what are we seeing that is we're having an issue with? Is there a pattern or something that we need to retrain on, or has there been a change in the law? So those are how we come up with what we're actually going to train on, and kind of come up with our itinerary and our training schedule, or topics.
And with the training that's required, do you actually expand a little bit more just specific to Akron beyond what's required by OPATA?
Yes, we do. They might say that you would need 4 hours of something. We're expanding on that. We might take that 4-hour class and then do scenario training based on whatever we learn. So we are expanding on that minimum requirement.
Okay. Captain Beitzel, do you have? Oh, I'm sorry. Just a moment. Councilman Fusco, do you have a question or a comment?
Thank you, Mr. McKittrick. I would yield to Captain Beitzel if she had something to add.
Not necessarily. My position within the department as a patrol commander is after Lieutenant Forney and his crew give us these rookies or trainees, as they're called now. It's obvious to me after this many years of being on the department, the difference in having trainees that have come from our own Akron Police Academy and spent all those weeks training together, the difference in the quality. Now that I'm seeing them as trainees on the shift, and we're actually, I think within 4 weeks of completing their FTO program, and where they'll then become probationary officers, but it is significantly different than what we had been experiencing over the past several years. So I guess kudos to City Council and everybody who was able to make it happen to bring an academy back to Akron.
I totally agree. I remember when this changed, and I was apprehensive of what might happen, especially after experiencing myself a portion of the academy, and seeing how impressive it was. So you're right. It's a good thing to have back. Councilman Malik, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask as well. But Councilman Fusco has another question here.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. The Ohio Collaborative, I'm curious about that. That's the citizen organization that made specific recommendations in terms of training. Is that?
Well, I think there is maybe some representation from citizens, but it's also people with significant experience in law enforcement, at different levels, or just to say in the justice system, and they make recommendation based on best practices. And and we've been doing that since the group was formed. And I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018 when it was formed, but we've been in compliance with their requirements or recommendations each year.
And Ohio Collaborative also has their tentacles into hiring, recruiting also. So we meet those standards. We meet those standards.
Great, thank you. The next is the, do we have like training, mandatory, annual, whatever, in reference to like the behavioral response against violence, de-escalation type things? Do we have that for do we have anything like that?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit just about our regular officers. I mean, we really build that in, or try to build that into all things that we do, and that's talking to people. We build that into our taser training. If you carry a taser on the Akron Police Department, every year you have to take an 8-hour taser refresher class. And part of that is talking to people, de-escalating things. So that's just one area that we do it in. Even our subject control, or what we would call use of force, that's worked into that is, being the professional, being the person that's calm, being the person that doesn't take things personally. So that is worked into as much training as we can. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
most of our training, we work that into.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the new buzzword or whatever that you hear more and more people talk about, the de-escalation piece of it. Because I know the job that the men and women of Akron go out there and it's tough. In some of the situations that you have to deal with,
Yeah.
due to the deinstitutionalization in the 80s, that we went through some of that. We have some people out there who have some challenges, and that kind of training I think would be good, to see that. Also in terms of training with regards to senior citizens with Alzheimer's, training with regards to people who may be under the influence, so on and so forth, and seeing that kind of training that de-escalate, I think is we'd like to see that. So sounds like you're doing some of it.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Councilman Malik, did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, sir. I think you just had two short questions, and thank you all for being here today. I really, I think this is incredibly informative, and I think that's part of hopefully what this committee will be able to do is help, share some of the information about the things that the department's doing. The first was Captain Beitzel. Would it be possible for us to get that data on the breakdowns of gender and race and everything shared with Sarah, and then maybe shared with all of council?
Yeah, absolutely. I got that from the chief's office, and I can contact Sergeant Knoll, or I can just email it to you myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then in terms of training, can you all talk just a little bit about CIT training? I know that many of the officers are CIT trained, and that this was done sort of ahead of the curve on the national trend. But can you talk about sort of how many officers are CIT trained, and sort of how the process works in terms of deciding who gets trained and how many are needed?
Yeah, we've like you said, we've got ahead of the curve on that. We've been doing that for a lot of years going back. I don't know exactly, but that was one time it was a 40-hour class that CIT officers would take. And those officers were selected based on, communicating with their shift commanders, who were active, who were out there, who were already compassionate people. And that's how kind of that program started out with Captain Yohe, I believe, was a very integral part of that program. Well, we're still doing that program. And another thing that we're doing is we're actually going along, and Captain Beitzel, you might know a little bit more about this, with we have an extra job that's a CIT that go out and check on people that might need, checked on to make sure things are going all right. But it's built into like an extra job that officers do.
Yeah, that's CIT outreach, and we have officers that ride along with personnel that work at PES or CSS. I'm sorry, at CSS, right? And they go out and they have a list of folks that they need to check on periodically and make sure that they're taking their medication or they don't need any additional help. And it's a very good program. And I'd also like to mention that you mentioned CIT. We do have an upcoming class even at the end of the month where we're putting additional officers through CIT training to, I don't have the numbers exactly of how many are going to be going through, but I know that there are several officers that are going to be going through this training at the end of the month. And it's still a 40-hour training. It's a full week.
Thank you both very much.
That sounds like that would be very successful, because it sounds a similar parallel to what EMS is doing with fire, with the REACH program, to get out, be interactive, be proactive, rather than wait till there's an issue, and more helpful to the public that way.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad.
Yes.
I'd like to digress a little bit back to recruiting and hiring.
Sure.
The department in late 2018, command staff decided to take a deep dive into our hiring process and try to find ways to streamline that process. As you know, it can be quite long. We went, we gathered, we had a committee, we came up with some solutions. We brought it forth to HR and to the administration. And I want to thank HR and the administration for helping us out in this, but we were able to be able to raise the age of our candidates up to the age of 40 from 35, which allows us to get a bigger pool of candidates. We also have been able to streamline our process. We had choke points in our process. We were provided with the ability to have more background investigators. We were able to have an outside vendor help us with polygraphs to really expedite the list, because as the list gets older, it gets stale and people go on looking for other employment at other places. So when we got, again, this test was given in April of 2019, we started actually backgrounds in late June, early July, and we were able to get 45 candidates into Academy in early December, which is unheard of for this department. And I want to thank everybody's cooperation and being able to do that.
Now, if I can say another way we kind of change with that is when we used to, when a candidate would come into Academy, you know, there's physical standards that they'd have to pass. Well, at one time we had it where when you come in, you had to be at the level, like if you walked out of the Academy and graduated, you know, at the end. So the standards, what we've done is, PATA lets you do it up to 15%, is we've taken the standard down 15% what it's going to be from the end. And then during that Academy, we work with that individual or those individuals and get them where they need to be. But at one time, you know, you passed on day one or you didn't go any further, and we've loosened up that physical standard.
And let me just give an example of that. And he's talking about the physical testing, push-up, sit-ups, and the run. In 2017, we had the old standard where you had to be at the PATA standard where you're going into a PATA Academy. We only had 156 people after that testing left on our eligibility list. In 2019, when we lowered that standard, we ended up with 271 applicants still on the list, which was a significant rise in the level of candidates we had to choose from. It made a big difference. So again, that was one of the ways we could lift our recruitment and be a little bit more inclusive in obtaining police officers.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Mr. Fusco, did you have another question?
Yeah, if I could, if it's okay with the committee here. Two, one is a question and a statement. The next one is an idea. So in 19, I should say, now we're paying our recruits as they are getting trained. Did I understand correctly?
Correct. I think it's $27.64 an hour.
Okay, good. And that's, I understand, and we're all supportive of that. Other departments, do they do that throughout the state pretty much? Or were we like a standalone who didn't do it previously, or does everyone pretty much do that? I don't know.
I guess I could speak on that a little bit. Most of your large departments have their own academy, which we went back to, and they have a training wage for their cadets. I know Cleveland, as of last year, was $15 an hour. They pay their training cadets. So we are significantly higher than Cleveland's training wage, which is great. It's a livable wage, and where you can support a family while you're going through the academy. I don't know what Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, or Toledo does, but I do know they do have a wage. They don't ask their recruits or their candidates to go through an academy without being paid.
And that's gotta make a difference in terms of the quality and so on and so forth. And I was just curious about that more than anything. The next, I'd like to mention this, and I've talked to a couple folks out there, President Somerville and I have talked to a couple folks out there, and I think this committee, the council members, you know, with obvious input from police, something we should explore in terms of, it has been a problem for a super long time. We all understand in terms of recruiting quality folks, and yeah, we've had discussions with the police, or excuse me, the schools, APS, in terms of maybe starting a little bit earlier, and also recognizing that 18 to 21, those 3 years, there isn't anyone that we can get to you know, become a police officer because they can't carry a gun, as we know. The thought is this, and that is, and maybe the next meeting we bring in personnel, similar to what police had done, you know, a couple of years ago in terms of looking at the way the whole thing is done. But what we could do is look at, you know, right now APS, I know that they're doing some things with regards to fire and public safety altogether, working with them, trying to identify some young ones out there who may have an interest, and then keeping their interest for those 3 years and putting them in the city pipeline, if you will, providing a path, and perhaps within the department itself, or just within the city itself. For example, you know, in Recreation Bureau, you know, for those 3 years, maybe you bring them in a stepped up employment, if you will, like, you know, start them out as seasonals in recreation. They're dealing with people every day, and maybe the next year you plug them into 311 call center. Okay, they're dealing with people 8 hours a day. That's a pretty unforgivable job, and it's pretty tough because usually people aren't there calling and saying thank you for all the good stuff. And then after that, and that Council Representative McKittrick and I are talking about this, maybe then we put them into the 911 call center, which is, you know, perhaps one of, you know, the most stressful jobs that we have out there. But this way here, I think they'll get a flavor, and I think we'll get a flavor of the kind of folks, and it'll provide that path for folks. And so that's something I'd like to hear from you, what the thoughts would be on a program similar to that, and maybe try to get them into the different divisions within the police department that doesn't carry a gun.
I think that's a great idea. And, you know, you're already observing them as, you know, doing work. And like you said, communicating with people. So you're getting a good judge of what kind of character they are. Yeah, I think that's you know, that could be a good plan if somehow we had steps that kind of worked you towards, you know, 21 and going to the police academy. I know back, you know, there was a while that we were getting some police officers from the dispatch center. You know, that when a police test would come up, several of the people in there would take it, and you know, quite a few have progressed and been officers. So, and if you did that citywide, you'd probably even have better results.
I think it's a good stopgap from losing those. We don't want to lose those 18 to 21-year-olds. And only thing we have right now is our Explorers group that kind of keeps them in the loop, and a program where we bring someone into the city and allow them to progress, and we're able to observe them and how they react and act in public, and is a great idea.
Yeah. Plus that time, you know, certainly transfers to the police department too. Overall city time be very beneficial for them.
Right. Yeah, that's another incentive.
Yeah.
I think one thing you'd have to think about, though, is the civil service portion of it, the civil service test. You might want to consider, if they complete whatever program, 3 years, you know, additional points like we do now for however you want it. So because otherwise they're just going to take the test like everybody else and place wherever it is that they place. And so therefore, maybe that experience, we won't reap the benefit as early as we would like to, because they'll be wherever they are on the list.
Right.
You understand?
That's a great point. Yeah, there's other extra points depending upon residency, veterans and so on. So that would be in fire, it's if they have their paramedics or EMT. So that is a great point. That would benefit that.
I wonder, yeah, that is. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, if we can make I don't know, it'd have to be up to our folks in personnel, but make it promotional within the city somehow. And then that would kind of like close the gap, you know what I'm saying, simultaneous to going public, okay? Because we see this in other departments in the city, right? I mean, we have other departments out there that hire, so on, test and all that, but they also make it so it's promotional. So maybe a program like this eventually could go into that direction, you know. Yeah, it might work. Good, thank you.
I had something else that I kind of wanted to address here. You know, people look at the aspect of, I was trying to do some research today to find out how they really come up with numbers, like in the city charter for personnel. So in the charter, what's the number for police? The top number is in the charter. Do we know? I know we're about 458, you said, is that correct right now?
Yes.
Our
That's
strength,
budgeted.
yes.
We might be at 457 actual people. I'm not sure what the
Okay.
budget is or but I think as far as people, we're at 457.
Okay.
Yeah, budget is
I-
468 right now.
I think as I discussed this earlier, I think maybe those numbers that were determined were back quite a ways. And I know people are going to make the comments and discussion in this that Akron's population was a lot higher, but I'm certain that the three of you could elaborate over your careers. Do you think the call volume and the I guess the danger of the calls have increased over your careers compared to what they were when you started?
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
I do believe that, well, like I said, we've all three of us have been on long enough to know what the department was like 25, 26 years ago. And I don't think the numbers, when we're talking about numbers, we need to consider that right now, whereas before we didn't have a lot of specialized programs, we weren't pulling, 13 officers into SROs. We weren't pulling a special unit out for heroin. We weren't pulling, different officers into all these different specialized units, the body worn camera unit. I mean, I could name and all of those officers come from the well that is patrol. And so the numbers in patrol, so the numbers we're actually putting out on the street to answer the calls for service. So even though we have an authorized strength, or I should say a budgeted strength of, I think you said 458, I'm not even sure what that is. Those same number of officers are getting dispersed in many more different ways than they were before. So that's where I think the difference is. It's not necessarily in that the city is more violent or that we're serving less people, although it's not that many less, because I did see the numbers the other day and we're really still up around 200,000 in the city, just a little less than that, which I think is what it was, back when I came on. It's just that we are getting pulled in many, many different units. And so therefore we have a lot less people to put in patrol.
Well, and really what I'm getting at with this is I look at the aspect, and those are all very valid points of what I looked at. And nationally, there was a graph that showed different departments throughout the entire country. And it showed the population, it showed the amount of officers, and they were trying to show per 10,000 population, how many officers. But I think that number, just as you said, is skewed because that number of officers doesn't equate into being in patrol. And so
Correct.
Looking at that, that's why I wonder if we need, as a council and administration, to re-examine that number that we have in the charter to see if there may be a need to change that. I look at when I was still working for the city, I had, besides fire, I had the police dispatch, and I would see you would have all these active calls, but you would have all these calls waiting. And when I looked at this and the degree of the calls waiting, I was thinking, gosh, we need more resources here, because your CAD and the fire CAD didn't even look close, because it was just continually one call to another for police. And I know that's got to be a stressful situation, which exacerbates other problems at times. And so I just want to see if that's maybe something that might be beneficial to examine that number there, to maybe change that if it might improve some of the aspects within the department.
Well, and Captain Beitzel's heart is in patrol, and it, what she's saying is correct. But some of these guys that got pulled from patrol or these positions were times when we were facing crisis situations like the heroin overdose. So we pulled people out of patrol ultimately to focus on these heroin investigations. Now what we're kind of doing is we're getting a lot of gun violence. So we're beefing up our gun violence people because that's what we're seeing. So maybe that is a good idea, like you said, to look at the overall number. But what ends up happening is as things change in Akron and the United States, different problems arise. We're constantly pulling from that patrol well, as she described it, to address these current issues.
Right. Yeah, and my point to everyone isn't that these units weren't necessary. They absolutely were. The heroin crisis, we're still combating that. The gun violence, like Lieutenant Forney just said. So everywhere that we pull, there's a need. We don't. There's an absolute need. It's just that you can only do so much with so many bodies, so to speak, or officers, and so. And I know that you're talking about budgeted strength, and I haven't looked at the charter lately. I think there's a different number for the authorized strength than there is for the budgeted strength. There's two different numbers. Am I correct?
Yes, you
There's
are.
one is an authorized
Yes.
strength, and then based on the yearly budget, the budgeted strength is generally always lower than the authorized strength.
Yeah, I think the authorized strength used to be in the low 500s, and
Mhm.
I don't know where it is now.
Yeah, but
I think-
last week I called, or Friday, and we actually have 457 Akron officers. That's where we're at.
Okay.
That's budgeted, but what's authorized in the charter?
Now, I think I'm sorry, Captain. I think that's how many actual
That's
sworn
current strength.
cops we have. Right now is 457.
Right.
I thought, and I could be off. Sarah, could you check that for us? I mean, not tonight, but the authorized strength within the budget, within the charter,
Yeah.
right? Well, I want to say it's 483 comes to mind. That number, I don't know why, but maybe it's off, but we could get that for the next meeting for sure. Share it with everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just think that's something that needs to be visited, to look to see what the authorized number is and how close we're going to that. I just think, I do agree, from my exposure over the years, you do need these specialized units. We need good trainers. Guys,
Mhm.
obviously,
Absolutely.
that's important. We need good people making good choices and doing good backgrounds to hire these new recruits. These are so important. But with all the other problems that are arising, like you mentioned, those are necessary things. And so I'm just looking at the aspect of, are we really at a number that is just on the edge, or is it really manageable? So that's something maybe we should revisit with this once we get the number that's in the charter. I want to kind of, if anybody else has anything, I'd like go ahead and speak up. I don't want to keep everybody real late. We're approaching an hour here. I'm very appreciative of everybody's attendance and their input. I greatly respect our men and women who are on our police department. I've been around them and seen them firsthand in many situations from my time with the city. And I have the utmost respect for everybody there. And I appreciate what all you do. So if anybody has anything they'd like to add for this evening, go right ahead.
I was just going to mention, we did receive 2 emails for this committee. Do you want me to go ahead and read those?
I looked at them, sure. I'm not sure if they're, if the one, I wasn't sure if it was applicable, but sure, if you'd like to go ahead and read those, I'd appreciate that, Sarah.
Sure. One is from Joe McDaniel, and it says, for personnel culture, all police peace officer, your choice, are up to their job duties. These cops are the bad apples in the force, and the complaints against those bullies should be taken serious. True investigations would help. Hate to say there's a lot to be done, and external investigations seem to be the common denominator. Then we received, it's from Nancy Smith. She says I read the Beacon article on the meeting with Chief Ball, where he was frustrated and angry and upset at the ban on chokeholds. Is there a way to get CIT Brave training for more officers on the force? Thanks for banning the chokeholds, by the way.
I think that that was answered. The CIT was discussed, and we see that that training. There's going to be some more going from what was mentioned. If anybody would like to respond to any of that, but go right ahead.
Brad, just that last night we had a program similar to this with other officers in the Akron Police Department that have different experience, and they really hit on just how thorough these investigations are, or how many levels these investigations of use of force and complaints are. So the gentleman that typed the email, I don't know if he had the opportunity to listen to the one last night, or he wants to play the tape from last night, but it really goes into the detail of just the levels of scrutiny that the Akron Police Department does. So,
if I can say, Brad, Lieutenant, as the co-chair of that group, I will go ahead and send him the video from that. That is a good idea. Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Shamus.
Just,
Councilman Fusco, go right ahead.
yeah, no, just one last comment. Basically echo everything that the chair said here, Mr. McKittrick, about thanking you for what you do on a daily basis. We really appreciate what you do. We know times are tough. We know the national discussion is different than what we see here. But we thank you for your willingness to work with us and everything you do again. And we just look forward to working with you the next few weeks, and hopefully we can come up with something that we can all improve our city that we love so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as I stated, October 1st will be our next meeting. If you can think of anything that might improve our aspect in hiring, our training, equity, as we approach this other meeting, please feel free to come up with some ideas, and we'll discuss when we meet again on the 1st.
Hey, Brad, one more thing. I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to invite the members of the subcommittee from council to come down, and I'll take you through the recruiting and hiring process and explain and show you how we go about the process on selecting candidates. I think it's very informative. So if someone want to do that, please reach out and contact me.
Yeah, I'd like a brush up again. So to get back on track of what's going on. I remember a lot of it, but I'm sure that there's some new things that
Yes.
I'd like to see what's going on. So thanks. I appreciate that invitation. Okay, if nobody else has anything, I have a motion, Mr. Fusco, to
A motion to adjourn.
adjourn. Okay, I second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in October.